Hey everyone, and welcome to Coffee with a Cane today, brought to you by the University of Miami Alumni Association. I am your host, Raul Velarde. I am a double cane from the College of Engineering alumni, and part of the Alumni Association. I am joined by Maddie Kaufman today. Maddie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Maddie Kaufman, and I am an almost double cane. I have my BS in marine science and biology from 2016, and then we'll be graduating this year with my MS in marine biology from Rasmus.
That's exciting. Congratulations. I think somebody, I don't know how you're studying right now. You have a lot of coffee pushing you through?
Yes, I do. And so since we're doing coffee with a cane, I don't get too creative. I just have an iced coffee, but it gets the job done. Just wondering what you were drinking.
I used to work at Starbucks, so I don't drink a lot of coffee anymore. But what they told me is if you put a little bit of coffee with a lot of whipped cream, all the customers buy it. So I have our little Engineering espresso cup for a cafecito time with a lot of whipped cream and a little bit of coffee. So I think the Miami in me will really come out with a bunch of energy.
Awesome.
But want to get things started off a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You're studying marine biology. You already studied part of it. What got you into it? Why is this important?
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm actually from Maryland originally, 3 hours from the coast, but fell in love with the ocean, going to the shores growing up, kind of off of Delaware and New Jersey. Got really lucky and got to try scuba diving in high school with a friend of mine. And we both were like, we're going to be marine biologists. At that point, she went on to become an amazing nurse, but I stuck to it and pursued marine bio, ended up getting some scholarship money to come to the U. And they have an incredible marine science program. I got to study abroad in the Galapagos Islands where there's no looking back. I knew I needed to dedicate my life to making more of the world as pristine and beautiful and diverse as the Galapagos. So I ended up going to grad school, and yeah.
That's awesome. So you had a life-defining moment, right?
Yeah.
Supposed to be giving shout-outs throughout this time. So shout out to the Galapagos, my home country of Ecuador, and also to all the alumni out there watching us. Want to make sure that this does become an interactive session. Maddie and I have been chatting throughout the past couple of weeks already. I think we're getting to know each other pretty well, but we want to make sure that any questions that you might have regarding sustainability, regarding the environment, make sure to put in the chat. Our staff is more than ready to help it out and kind of run through it. Maddie, studying marine biology, you're involved with 25 different organizations, but I think your main one right now is Debris-Free Oceans, right?
Yeah.
You're program director there?
Yes, I'm program and outreach director.
And what does that mean? What does Debris-Free Ocean do? How does that help the environment?
Awesome. Yeah, so I was introduced to Debris-Free Oceans about 3 years ago now, going on 4. When I got back again from that amazing study abroad internship, program, I ended up just wanting to get involved every way I could, started going to different events, volunteering, started applying to jobs, but didn't really get anything. So really focused on the volunteering and went on a Debris-Free Oceans event and just kind of fell in love with this organization. So they're about 5 years old, started in 2014, 2015, basically after a study came out where they found that there was more plastic in the ocean than stars in our Milky Way galaxy.
Wow.
I've read this study. It's very complex modeling that I don't understand, but it's been peer reviewed, so I think it's legit. And they found there was like 5.25 trillion pieces of plastic. And so DFO's mission is to raise awareness about this issue, contribute to eradicating this problem. But what really stuck out to me about this group is that it was just so fun and everything was really positive. Like every event had a super positive, fun spin on it. So we do like cleanups, but again, having fun's the priority. So we'll do keg and cleans where we get a keg sponsored by Winwood Brewing Co. Anyone who comes and brings a reusable cup gets free beer the whole time. We do scuba cleanups. We did like a kayak cleanup for Valentine's Day this year where people signed up for singles and we paired them together on tandem kayaks to meet each other. But cleanups is kind of a response to the issue. We like to target it at the source too. So we do a lot of education. We've educated over 8,000 students to date just about plastic pollution, what they can do. And then we do sustainability consulting. So we'll work with local businesses. We work with the city of Miami Beach. We've worked with festivals like Ultra to get them to cut down on their plastic use and switch to sustainable alternatives.
So you're really touching a lot of different parts of Miami, right? Focused a lot down here. But you mentioned, these huge numbers, right? 5.5 trillion pieces of plastic. That includes all the microplastics, all the breakdown, right? That just happened throughout thousands of years. What does that mean to people like you and me just living day to day, right? Maybe that don't know that much about it, or that we don't even see it. A lot of these are just things that you don't see until you have the picture of the seal with a plastic bag around their neck.
It's wild, like how much once you go to an event or someone starts to tell you about this, then you're like, oh my gosh, this has been everywhere the whole time and I just never saw it. But so there's all this plastic out there. And so plastics are a byproduct of oil production, and they're synthetic kind of hydrocarbon polymers that are very, very strong. And since they're kind of man-made, they don't break down naturally in the environment. They just really haven't been around enough. Like maybe in a crazy future world, there'll be animals that can actually break down plastic because it's so everywhere that they've evolved to do so. But they're super resistant to degradation. Like people put numbers on it, like 400 years, X amount of years. It's kind of hard to say when we haven't been around to analyze it that long. But they're super resistant to break down. But they will actually kind of physically break apart. So when they're in the sun, when they're in the ocean and there's waves, there's like a process called photodegradation. It breaks them into these tiny pieces that, again, that's the stuff we actually can't see. And a lot of marine life ends up eating it. That can be like a fish eating kind of little algae. A lot of seabirds eat fish eggs and algae, and it looks just like that. And those kind of things can bioaccumulate up the food chain. And so there's all this stuff that we can go into about animals, but it does affect us too, because we can end up eating these like mussels and marine life and fish that have ingested plastics. And there are studies about how they're endocrine disruptors and again, whole 9 yards. But to kind of bring it back like close to home about how it relates to us and like the things we are doing. Sorry, I just spaced out. So 80% of marine debris is actually land-based, and a lot of it are these single-use plastic items. So when I say single-use, it's something that you use once and then throw out. And they're super convenient, they're really cheap, you don't have to do dishes. I understand the appeal, but again, since they're these plastics, they last forever. It just, if you think about it, it doesn't make too much sense to use something permanent that for a single-use purpose. And so a lot of times these, even if you dispose of them properly, it can end up getting in the waste stream from when your garbage disposal comes and picks stuff up, or when there's littering. And so a lot of these are items, think straw, think bag, think plastic fork. A lot of those items are what end up kind of getting into the environment and causing these bad impacts.
So a lot of the easy to use day-to-day I guess, really actions from people or decisions are making a long-term impact. So something to think about. While we're on it, shout out to Corinne Greer-Becker joining us today. Make sure to ask your questions. We're getting them in and just sorting them through. But Maddie, wanted to kind of touch on something that you mentioned, and that's petroleum, and we'll be naive to not touch the elephant in the room with COVID and everything going on right now. Oil prices this past week dropped at historic lows, negative at one point. So a lot of that production comes on still. What can people do in there or make decisions for that would help us at this time? Yeah,
so I'm glad you brought that up. So again, I kind of touched on it. These plastics are a product of kind of oil production. So when we refine oil to get like the gases that we use, kind of the byproducts are kind of combined into the materials we use to make common single-use plastic products. And again, as we've been fracking and creating a lot of natural gas, even before this all went down, a lot of these companies were turning towards plastic manufacturing because we have this excess of natural gas. And so this was happening before. And now with all of this, it's just definitely been amplified. And natural gas, if the stuff is really cheap, if we think about recycling, no one's going to want to be paying extra money to use recycled plastic when you can get really cheap petroleum plastic. And I think the best thing we can do from home and like as consumers is just kind of exercise consumer power to avoid those products as much as we can. Because I think with this market, it's really going to be inevitable to avoid what I've just been talking about. But it's kind of up to us to avoid these plastic water bottles, avoid plastic utensils and whatnot when we can, because I know and understand that it's not possible. I'm not plastic free. It's just about trying the best you can when you can. But yeah, at this point, I think the best kind of solution is taking it in our own power to avoid those products as much as we can.
So what would you recommend? I know that you've mentioned a couple of different things that you've changed, right? Some tablets, you know, to get away from that. What should people look at or explore at least?
Yeah, so I actually brought some stuff. We didn't plan this, but there are some easy hitters. I mean, not easy. Any little change for your day-to-day routine is going to be hard, but I think the science is you can pick up a habit in 2 weeks, if I'm remembering that correctly. But the easiest one, in my opinion, are water bottles. Just getting a reusable water bottle. Pretty easy switch, saves you money. And there are a lot of studies that have found that that water within plastic water bottles actually have high kind of microplastic concentrations. And fun fact, tap water is regulated by the EPA, while plastic water bottles, or that water is regulated by the FDA. So there are actually stricter regulations for your tap water, and it's probably more safe, but I digress. Then you can also start carrying around your own utensil kit. This is definitely a more advanced move. Once you get the plastic or the bottles down, reusable bags is a good one too. Once you get those down, then you can progress into something like this. I carry this around in my purse. It's got a spoon, fork, utensils, or knife, and then also chopsticks if I want something to eat chopsticks with, and a straw. And so I kind of have my own set of silverware for if I ever go anywhere. And then another change, this is top level. Once you've finally done it, I don't have any expectations for you guys to get here anytime soon. It took me years, but there's an amazing refill store in Miami called Verde Market. And you can go there and bring your own containers to fill up your shampoo, conditioner, things like vegetable oil, coconut oil, dish detergent, laundry detergent. They have like almost everything. And so that's where you start knocking out your shampoo containers that are single-use plastics, your dish detergent containers that are single-use plastics. So yeah.
That's amazing. Haven't even heard of that, so glad that there's opportunities out there. We have a question from Pang Hijanti, if you want to make sure I'm pronouncing that right. She's a host of the South Florida and PBS and next host of Coffee with a Cane. How do we get companies to package their items in a non-plastic container or in compostable containers? Yeah,
so what we've kind of been doing in South Florida is it's pretty hard to pass like kind of local government legislation that kind of requires this of companies and businesses. We've kind of transitioned our efforts to voluntary, but with like a good recognition program where we really highlight businesses that are making these changes so that they can benefit from like our raving about them and just kind of benefit from people supporting eco-conscious companies. So for example, we've worked with the city of Miami Beach to launch plastic-free MB. It's again voluntary, but we have already had 120 businesses sign on. And again, it's an initiative where they recognize their different tiers based on how much you've done, and you receive kind of stuff to showcase in your store and whatnot. There are initiatives I actually haven't followed up recently, but there is a program called Loop that is working with certain brands to bring detergents and whatnot within reusable containers to your house for pickup on a regular basis. I know that was kind of in its earlier development stages, and I'm not sure where it is right now, but that is definitely something happening. And then just for anyone tuning in, if you're a company that's interested in making these switches, we do have on our website a catalog of eco-friendly single-use disposables. And so to make it on that catalog, you have to be backyard cold compostable. And so what I mean by that is there are a lot of products that are labeled as compostable, but technically they only break down at industrial composting facilities where they can raise the temperatures and like add oxygen and make it an environment where this stuff will actually break down. But when that kind of stuff ends up in the environment or in kind of your backyard compost, it doesn't have that and it won't break apart. So I digress, but there are products made of like bamboo, of wheat straw, some paper products that are backyard compostable and should be okay should they end up in the environment. And they're on our website under like our sustainability consulting tab if you want to check out some of those products.
That's awesome. I think that's great information, and I'm going to touch back on. But before that, Pam had a great follow-up that I think we all had. Where is the Verde Market?
So
I feel like we all want to go now.
I feel like a kid in a candy shop when I'm there. So the original one is in kind of outside of Wynwood by Midtown. Okay. I can't remember the exact street name, but in like Midtown area. And then I got really excited, and Canes that are still in the Coral Gables area, one just opened up in around Sunset Place, so right around in that area. They're new, but I went and they have basically everything I like. They were missing the fresh squeezed orange juice, which is so good, but they said they were working on getting a refrigerator, so hopefully that's there soon.
That's great. So I think we've gone from down to South Florida and touched on Galapagos for a little bit. You mentioned Coral Gables, your experience there during your undergrad and now during your master's. How has UM, in a sense, helped you and prepared you for this trek, right, trying to change the world?
Yeah, kind of like I said, one, that study abroad program was such a turning point. And when I came back and was like interested in getting involved in everything from advanced scuba training, joining the aquarium club, joining part of the eco groups. Like there's so many amazing organizations on campus. And I'm sure you guys have all seen the Earth Day, Earth Week initiatives. There was amazing stuff every hour of every day this week. Like the I love the Canes. I wanted to shout out actually that I'm about to be a double Cane. Our co-founder got her BA from UM. We currently have 4 UM interns, and another one of our co-founders used to teach kind of tax and accounting classes in the business school. So we are all about the U. You guys clearly do an amazing job of training eco warriors, inspiring them and equipping them with the tools they need. Specifically at Erasmus, there's so many amazing research opportunities and professors that are willing to let you volunteer, let you work in their lab. A ton of ways to get involved and just a super supportive community. That's
great. It's community effort at this point. You had touched on composting. That's want to get back to it. And Maria Alejandra actually beat me to the question. A lot of people are always interested in it. A lot of people are intimidated by it, myself included, right? Feel like it would be extremely difficult. She asked, how can I do some of that at home?
I love that this question came up because I actually bought my first compost a week ago to the day, I'm pretty sure. I've had it for about a week. It's already so fun. I actually got it opportunistically because I was at Aldi's looking for groceries and there was a $40 rotating compost. I was there again today and I didn't see it there. So unfortunately, I think it's sold out. But yeah, I was intimidated too. I think that's the kind of thing that you just have to jump into it and try to learn it and like see how it goes. Do your first batch, might fail, and then just keep trying. I haven't done too much personal research into it, but the one I bought comes with some instructions that are pretty simple where you just kind of have to make sure you keep certain things like meats out of it, but use your vegetable scraps and whatnot. And there's a kind of golden ratio of nitrogen to carbon materials. where you want to use 1/4 for every like 1/4 of green nitrogen materials, which are like vegetable scraps, garden scraps. You want to include a 3/4 of carbon material. So that's, you can actually use cardboard, but it's also like kind of dried up leaves and whatnot. And then eggshells are neutral, so I can throw a bunch of eggshells in there all the time. And yeah, again, it's pretty new, so I'm not sure how successful it's going to be. But again, I just recommend jumping into it. I have a friend that her compost is just a pile in her backyard. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't watch the ratio, and she uses it for a garden. So I think there are different ways to compost based on your skill level. And then lastly, there are, I'm not sure if they're accepting stuff now just because of COVID, but there are organizations that will accept your compost at their location to compost it for you. So you can save your scraps all week, throw them in your freezer so that doesn't smell. And then at the end of the week, you can take it to either Back to Earth, which is in the Grove area. I actually haven't been, so I don't know more specific than that. And then actually Miami Beach Botanical Gardens accepts it too.
Okay. And then Francis Garcia actually brings up a good point. Do you have to use the worms? So the one that you bought, did you get a side of worms with it?
My particular rotating compost does not. And I don't think rotating ones, by rotating, I just mean you have to spin it around every couple of days. And I haven't seen one that does. My old roommate actually had a worm composter. And so you'd have to get worms for it. It was like 4 layers, and I never learned. I was very intimidated of that. It was like still heaps of grad school, wasn't making that effort yet. But there are composters with worms. I think that's a little bit more difficult, but probably a little bit more. I mean, the more you put into something, the more you get out of it. So you probably get better soil and whatnot. I'm just not familiar with that kind.
Got it. I think to answer the question broadly, it's really going to depend on the type of compost that you take on, right? I know that when I was at school, Dr. Engelhardt had us do one with worms, and a lot of childhood fears got brought up during that time. So kind of depends. You got one commercially, right, from Aldi. If people want to go expand it, there's a lot of opportunities in there.
Now's the time to learn, definitely. It's a very good safer from home hobby.
Are you growing a lot of plants right now while indoors?
That's next on my list. Once I have the compost soil, then I have to. I do not have a green thumb. I've kind of gotten into a cycle of wanting plants by my desk while I'm working from home because it makes me happy, but then I'm not good at taking care of them and they kind of gradually wilt all week. And then I'm just like, is this happy or is this actually sad? So I'm just watching this plant all day. Just wilt more. But it's on my list after I get the composting down.
Okay, so you're going to use it for it, right? I think it's going to be great and shows that even superwomen have a little bit of flaws to it. Going forward, after planning, do you plan on doing any kind of the organic foods with it? Is it something you plan to utilize? How does your sustainability, I guess, goals look like?
Yeah, so it's funny you kind of mentioned organic vegetable goals. So since this was 2020, I made my New Year's resolutions, but I also made decade resolutions for like long-term goals that like, there's no way this is going to happen in a year, maybe not 2, but by 2030, I'm going to get this. And so having a legitimate garden is on there where I can actually grow from home, reduce that food packaging waste, and whatnot. And then I'm not full vegetarian yet, which is, I hate saying, it makes me cringe, but I want to be open and nobody's perfect. And as long as you just keep trying your best, that's all you can do. I think I'm the only non-full vegetarian on the Debris Free Oceans team, which makes it all the more worse. But that's one of my big kind of before 2030, but long-term goals is to really, really fully cut out meat. Honestly, my main downfall is lunch meat because I'm really lazy at lunch and all I know how to do is make sandwiches. But yeah, definitely being an earth activist, I guess, or kind of sustainable person, cutting down on that meat is really, really, really important, just in terms of the associated deforestation and the associated greenhouse gas emissions, on top of the animal humanity's kind of reasons. And so that is, again, talking about all those tiers, which is like just using a reusable water bottle, all these little things. Vegetarian, honestly, probably should come before all my Verde switches, but I'm working on it.
Can you touch a little bit on that? I mean, you're grazing the level there at the impact of it, just deforestation, and for those that don't know, can you talk a little bit more in depth of what that actually means? Right? There's a lot of embodied utilization of resources in those.
Yeah. So I don't have the like exact numbers and stats, but I want to say that kind of climate scientists and whatnot will say that if you do all these things, like switch to riding your bike, like avoiding or switch to riding your bike, using public transportation, carpooling, all of these kind of transportation emissions that have been the subject of so much conversation, it really won't have an impact unless you kind of make the efforts from your diet side of things as well. And that's because kind of farming all this cattle and whatnot is associated with so much deforestation. So you lose that carbon sink, but then on top of that, this makes me laugh because I'm kind of immature, but like the gases produced by cows and cattle is actually methane, which is a really, really, really bad greenhouse gas. And that contributes a ton to kind of climate warming as well. And so I think, I mean, in my personal opinion, again, not an expert, even just switching to kind of poultry meats instead of kind of cattle-based meats, I think helps with that a significant amount. So I was able to cut out like red meats and whatnot, but at lunch I still get kind of rotisserie chicken stuff for my simple lame sandwiches because I don't know how to make stuff that well. But yes, if you guys are watching and even if it's something as simple as Meatless Monday, like you don't need to cut this out of your diet forever, but just on Mondays, kind of take an initiative to cut out all meats for that whole day. Like if you think about if everyone on this planet, or not even everyone on this planet, everyone in Miami did Meatless Monday on, I think, what, are there 700,000 people in Miami did Meatless Monday on Mondays? Like that'd be amazing. So definitely encourage considering that too.
That's a great point. I think you touched on transportation, and you must have read someone's mind. Maria Alejandra Cardona was saying, would transportation be helping with all of that too? Right, so it sounds like they are complementary, if anything, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, all of that to say is not to stop those actions as well. And as you can see from what's been coming out of China, now it's in our hands, what's coming out of studies here is we are really seeing that significant decrease in emissions and emitted pollutants based on our working from home, which again is incredible. Like if anything, the silver lining of all of this is it's shown how much, well, one, how quickly we can act together. Like who knew we could do all of this in a matter of weeks? And then two, how quickly that can have incredible impacts, like clear skies, less smog, more wildlife. Again, I think we need to, like, just as quickly as we turn it off, we can just as quickly turn it on. So we have to be considerate of that and conscious of that and try to kind of restart as sustainably and thoughtfully as we can.
I laughed because the follow-up question from Maria was, have you seen less smog? People aren't out there right now because of coronavirus. And, is that helping out greenhouse gases? Last study that I saw, in LA, it was 32% down, New York, 25% down, Argentina, I think it was about 18 to 20% down. So way to answer the question before it comes up. But to everyone watching, make sure that you keep on putting in these questions. These are great and very real-time effect from what we're seeing out there. Dolphins and manta rays, 2 feet away from downtown Miami. It's great to see the earth kind of taking a break and all the animals kind of coming back. With that, have you been diving yet? I know the research is still vital, right?
Yes.
Have you seen any of that changes firsthand?
So I have been able to dive, which has been very fortunate. My master's degree is in the coral restoration lab at UM. So we grow corals offshore, outplant them onto the reef, and monitor them to see how they're doing and what are the best ways we can optimize success and survivorship. And we have 2 projects ongoing that are very timely and very important. So we've been allowed to dive as part of essential research. And it's funny you asked that because one of the communications women at Rasmus like emailed us and was like, I heard you're still diving. Keep your eyes out for wildlife so we can talk about it. And so I haven't seen anything too out of the ordinary yet, but I have seen those videos, which are phenomenal. Yesterday when we were out, there were a lot of fish out, and I was like, oh, they're all celebrating Earth Day. But I don't think it was kind of a crazy sighting or whatnot yet. I will let you guys know if otherwise and make sure to post it and tag you. And I'm hoping I see something cool soon. But I saw the video of the Manta Ray, which is amazing. I've never seen one in Florida, and I think I have like 350 dives here. It's unbelievable. I've only seen nurse sharks here before, not like other species of sharks. So it's like amazing that all this wildlife is here. Again, I think we need to be very careful about how quickly we restart. And I mean, if we return to business as usual, this is going to go away just as fast as it appeared. But again, I think this is a really unique opportunity, especially during all of this time at home, to kind of brainstorm and come up with creative, conscious ways to restart after kind of reflecting on previous behaviors and why we're seeing these significant changes now, to, again, restart in a way that kind of promotes the longevity of these changes that we're seeing.
That's vital, coming back, right? Make sure that we learn our lesson. You mentioned your study with coral right now, right? As kind of building off of that. I know we've been doing a lot of research on it. Industry has been doing a lot of research, resiliency and sea level rise. How have you been seeing coral partnering up with that? What is your research entitled or focusing on?
Yeah, so my research has been very specific. Well, I guess it's kind of general, but so we have all these corals in our nurseries, but they're so the way you can kind of propagate so you have a lot is you take one colony and you break it in half, and then you have 2 new clones, but they're kind of unique colonies. Then they grow and you can break more, and actually when you break them they grow more quickly, something called pruning vigor. So then you end up with a bunch of clones of original genotypes that were collected from as far north. We have corals from as far north as Broward County, and then as far south as like the tip of Key Largo. And since we have this wide range of corals that evolved in specific environments, in warmer environments, in areas of higher kind of wave energy, we suspect that they have these different associated phenotypes. So what I've been doing is seeing if there's any like geographic trends to behaviors and kind of seeing if we have any superstars, like any ones that are really fast growing, really fast at recovering wounds, really good at disease resistance, and seeing if there's kind of a geographic trend with anything. And in that way, we can really focus on the individuals that we think are going to be really great in the future, so that we're kind of restoring the most, I guess, not even like climate ready, disease ready corals possible. But we really work to maintain diversity because we can't really say what the future is going to hold. Like maybe there's a big shift in a genotype that didn't do so well now would be ideal in the future. So it's always good to maintain that diversity. But again, to kind of make sure we're restoring the most resilient reefs that there could be. And just in terms of sea level rise, we have some projects. We actually were a part of ULink, which you might be familiar with. Actually, I think someone in the engineering school is a part of it right now, where we pitched a proposal to the city of Miami Beach for kind of hybrid reef, artificial, but also green structures offshore to combat the effects of storm surge and sea level rise. Because when storms come in and hit the reef, that actually buffers down a lot of that wave energy. And if you're able to use corals on that say you invest all this money to build the structure, but then that kind of living structure can grow with sea level rise. So we don't have to keep spending millions of dollars to throw more cement onto that area and protect that coastline. So while that hasn't been my specific field, I think it's super cool. So I wanted to throw that out there too.
That's awesome. That's innovation right there, starting at the U.
Yeah.
Great to hear everything that's going on. Definitely extremely passionate. A lot of different ways to get involved with sustainability, resiliency. Just starting off with reduction and what's next, how people can do better, right? We gotta take care of everything. So thank you for watching. Can you let us know how to follow you on social media and Debris Free?
So our Instagram and Facebook handles are at Debris Free Oceans, plural. Sometimes people forget the last S. And I just wanted to mention, for all of you kind of looking for creative things to do from home, to kind of be a part of this change and promote sustainability, safer from home, we did a big campaign yesterday encouraging people to share on their story things they were doing and then nominate 3 friends to share what they were doing. And so it started to delete. Now that's past the 24-hour mark, but I put it in our highlights. So you should definitely check that out. There's a lot of kind of creative things that are very accessible during these times to help kind of celebrate Earth Day from home and be part of this like collective action.
That's great. Well, join us next week with Coffee with a King with Carolina from Exquisito Chocolates, hosted by Pam. Thank you, Pam, for watching today. And thank you to all the alumni that have been with us throughout, asking questions and really trying to get involved. Feel free to reach out to the Alumni Association with any suggestions. And remember, next week, 2 p.m. on Thursday. Awesome. Thank you. Go Canes. Let's go. Cheers.
Woo!